I've had enough of your excuses. You need to tell me the truth, right now.
Sign it, or you're suspended. The words slammed against the walls of the principal's office like a thunderclap. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, but the silence that followed was heavier than anything. 17-year-old Malik Johnson stood frozen, his backpack hanging from one shoulder, his hoodie flecked with chalk dust from math class. His good hand shook as he stared at the piece of paper lying on the desk in front of him, a suspension slip already filled out with his name scrawled across the top. Across the desk, Principal Harris leaned forward, his round glasses sliding down his nose. His finger tapped the form hard, again and again, as if punctuating every word. You're disruptive. You're disrespectful. You don't belong in this school if you can't follow the rules. Sign it. Malik swallowed hard, his throat dry. I didn't do anything, he said quietly, his voice trembling but firm. You know I didn't. I wasn't even there. The principal's face reddened, his jowls trembling with rage. Don't lie to me, boy. Teachers saw you. You think you can get away with anything just because you smile and act polite? Not this time. You've been trouble since the day you walked in here. The word boy stung like a slap. Malik's fists clenched at his sides. He thought about his mom working late shifts at the bank, his dad driving nights to cover the bills. He thought about their pride when he brought home his last report card. He thought about how easily this piece of paper could crush everything. I'm not signing something that isn't true, he said louder now, voice shaking but defiant. Outside the office door, students walking past slowed down, peering through the narrow glass window, a few phones tilted upward, recording discreetly. Teachers whispered nervously, exchanging glances, but no one entered. Principal Harris stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. His finger jabbed at Malik like a spear. If you don't sign this, I'll make sure it goes on your record anyway. And when colleges see it, they'll know what kind of student you really are. Gasps came from outside the door. A girl whispered, "He can't do that." But the phone in her hand was already recording. Malik's chest heaved, his knees trembled, but he lifted his chin, eyes locked on Harris. You can threaten me all you want. I know the truth, and so does everyone else listening. The principal's jaw tightened, his face flushed crimson. Get out. Get out of my office before I call security and have you dragged out of this school. Malik didn't move. I'm not leaving until you call my parents. The office seemed to freeze, the tension snapping so tight it could shatter glass. And just then, as if the universe itself had heard him, the office door burst open. Mrs. Johnson, Malik's mother, strode in first, her heels sharp against the tile, her blazer crisp, her eyes burning with fury. Behind her, Mr. Johnson followed, his work shirt still stained from the garage, his jaw clenched like stone. Both of them flanked their son in an instant, standing tall beside him. What, Mrs. Johnson's voice cut through the air like a blade, is going on here? The students outside gasped louder, phones now fully raised. And for the first time all day, Principal Harris faltered. The air in the office shifted the moment Malik's parents stepped in. It wasn't just the sound of his mother's heels or the grease-stained sleeves of his father's work shirt. It was the weight they carried, the fury of parents who knew their son had been wronged. Mrs. Johnson's eyes locked on the suspension slip lying on the desk. Her voice was steady, but each word cut like glass. Why does my son's name appear on a suspension form we never received notice of? Principal Harris cleared his throat, fumbling with his glasses. Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Johnson, thank you for coming. Your son was caught disrupting class and— Liar, Mr. Johnson snapped, his voice booming so loud it rattled the thin glass walls. I was at the school event. Malik was with me at the time you're accusing him of. Don't you dare fabricate lies to ruin his future. Gasps echoed from the hallway. Phones pressed closer to the glass. Students whispered, He's busted. Harris's face reddened, but he tried to recover. Sir, with respect, perhaps you don't know what your son gets up to when you're not around. Multiple teachers confirmed. Mrs. Johnson slammed her hand on the desk, silencing him instantly. Then show us the reports. Show us the evidence. Show us the signatures. Because as far as I can see, the only thing on this desk is a pre-signed suspension slip with my son's name already written in. The principal flinched. His eyes darted to the slip, then back to them. His lips parted, but no words came. Malik stood between his parents, heart racing, but for the first time since the nightmare began, he felt the strength of their presence lifting him. You tried to make him sign it, didn't you? Mrs. Johnson said, her voice trembling with restrained rage. You tried to scare a child into confessing to something he didn't do. Harris's hand twitched, his face pale. I was trying to maintain discipline. He's been a disruption for months. That's a lie, Malik said sharply, his voice ringing with confidence now. He stepped forward, his parents' hands resting firmly on his shoulders. I've never once been written up. My record is clean. You made this up because you don't want me here, because you don't think I belong. The silence after his words was deafening. Outside the door, students pressed even closer, their phones glowing red with recording lights. A teacher in the hallway shook her head, whispering, "This is going too far." Mr. Johnson leaned in, his face inches from Harris's. His voice was low but dangerous. You think you can crush a black boy's future because you've got a desk and a title? But you've forgotten something. He's not alone. He's got parents who will fight you. He's got classmates who see the truth. And right now, the whole school is watching you. Harris's hands shook as he adjusted his glasses. He tried to regain control, but his words betrayed him. This isn't about race. It's about discipline. Mrs. Johnson's eyes burned. Don't you dare hide behind that excuse. You didn't discipline him, you targeted him. Gasps louder than ever rippled from outside. Students whispered fiercely. She said it. She called him out. And then, like a judge entering a courtroom, the superintendent herself appeared at the office door. A tall black woman in a navy suit, silver streaks in her hair, her ID badge gleaming, Dr. Evelyn Carter, District Superintendent. The crowd outside hushed instantly, parting to let her through. Phones tilted higher, zooming in. Dr. Carter stepped into the office with slow, deliberate steps. Her eyes swept over Malik, his parents, then froze on Harris, who looked like the ground had been ripped out from under him. Principal Harris, she said, her voice calm but sharp enough to cut steel. Explain to me right now why I walked into this school and found students recording through your office door while you attempt to suspend a boy without cause. The entire hallway went silent. And for the first time that day, Harris looked afraid. The air in the office turned heavy as Dr. Evelyn Carter closed the door behind her. The glass walls couldn't mute the murmurs outside. Dozens of students and teachers pressed close, their phones raised, their faces tense. But inside, the silence was suffocating. Principal Harris tried to gather himself, straightening his tie, forcing a smile that looked more like a grimace. Dr. Carter, I was just handling a disciplinary issue, nothing more. Her eyes narrowed, cold and sharp. Disciplinary issue? She stepped closer, plucking the suspension slip from his desk and scanning it, her lips pressed into a thin line. This form has Malik Johnson's name written in, but the incident details are vague, incomplete, and unsigned by any teacher. Why? Harris stammered, sweat glistening at his temple. I was in the process of filling it out. The teachers already told me what happened, and— Which teachers? Dr. Carter snapped, cutting him off. Her voice was low but powerful. Name them. The room went silent. Harris's eyes darted toward the window, avoiding her gaze. He licked his lips, fumbling for words. They'd prefer to remain anonymous, he said finally, voice weak. Laughter erupted from the hallway. Anonymous teachers? A student whispered, loud enough to be heard. That's fake. Dr. Carter's eyes narrowed further. So you want me to believe that multiple teachers accused Malik, yet not a single one was willing to sign their name to it? Convenient. Mrs. Johnson stepped forward, her phone in her hand. Here's the truth. She tapped the screen, pulling up security footage from the school hallway, time-stamped and clear. The video showed Malik walking beside his father, carrying boxes for the school's event setup during the exact time Harris claimed he was disrupting class. She held the phone up to Dr. Carter and then higher, so Harris could see too. This, she said firmly, her voice trembling with rage, is proof. Proof that you lied. Proof that you tried to suspend my son for something he didn't do. Gasps filled the hallway, echoing against the glass. Phones tilted higher, zooming in. Mr. Johnson slammed a folder onto the desk. And here's every report card, every teacher evaluation, and every note Malik has ever received. Not one complaint, not one warning. You were trying to destroy his future because you thought no one would stop you. The superintendent studied the evidence, her jaw tightening. She turned back to Harris, her voice sharp as steel. Do you realize the gravity of this? Do you realize what happens when you fabricate disciplinary records against a student, especially one with a spotless history? Harris's lips trembled. I wasn't fabricating. I was following up on concerns. No, Malik said suddenly, his voice steady and clear. Everyone in the room turned to him. He stood tall now, his parents behind him, his eyes burning with courage. You weren't following up. You've been after me since my first day here. The looks, the comments, the way you talked down to me. This suspension was just the excuse you needed. The silence was heavy, but his words carried through it like thunder. The students outside whispered fiercely. He's right. I've seen it too. He always picks on him. Dr. Carter stepped closer to Harris, her shadow falling over him. So what's it going to be, Principal Harris? Are you going to keep lying in front of me, in front of this family, in front of half the school? Harris's face was pale now, beads of sweat rolling down his temples. He opened his mouth, but no words came. His authority, once untouchable, was collapsing in real time. And Lisa Johnson, her voice trembling but strong, delivered the final blow. You wanted my son to sign away his future with one signature. Now you're the one signing your career away. The room shook with gasps and murmurs. And for the first time in his career, Principal Harris had no power left. The silence in the office was deafening. Outside the glass, the hallway was packed now. Students, teachers, even custodians leaning in. Dozens of phones hovered, their red record lights glowing like an army of unblinking eyes. Principal Harris sat slumped in his chair, his face pale, his glasses slipping down his nose. His hands shook as they fumbled with the papers on his desk, but there was nothing left to hide behind. Dr. Carter straightened to her full height, the suspension slip still in her hand. Her voice was calm, but each word hit like a hammer. Principal Harris, you have fabricated disciplinary action against a student, attempted to coerce him into signing a false suspension, and misled both his parents and this administration. That is not just unethical, it is a violation of district policy. Harris stammered, his words breaking like glass. I was trying to maintain order. Discipline is essential. And enough, Dr. Carter snapped, her voice slicing through the room. You don't get to hide behind discipline. What you did was target Malik Johnson, and you did it in front of witnesses, in front of cameras, in front of your entire school. Gasps echoed outside, phones tilted closer. A student whispered loudly,
He's finished. Mrs. Johnson crossed her arms, her voice trembling but strong. You tried to write my son's future off on a piece of paper, but the only paper you'll be signing now is your resignation. Mr. Johnson leaned forward, his voice low and thunderous. You picked the wrong family. You thought you could scare him into silence. Instead, you've just exposed yourself to everyone. Dr. Carter's jaw tightened as she pulled a form from her briefcase. She placed it on the desk in front of Harris. Effective immediately, you are suspended pending a full investigation. Security will escort you off the premises. The hallway erupted, gasps, cheers, murmurs blending into a roar. Students pressed against the glass, some clapping, others shouting, "Yes!" Harris's face drained of color. His hand trembled as he reached for the paper, his pen shaking as he scrawled his name. It wasn't just ink. It was the collapse of everything he had built on lies. Dr. Carter slid the paper into her folder without another glance. She turned to Malik and his parents, her tone softening. I'm sorry you had to endure this. This will not follow Malik. His record will remain spotless, as it always should have been. Relief flooded Malik's chest. He exhaled slowly, his shoulders finally easing. His mother squeezed his hand. His father's grip on his shoulder was firm, proud. When the office door opened, the roar from the hallway grew deafening. Students cheered, clapped, some even chanted Malik's name. Phones captured every second as he stepped out, flanked by his parents, his head high, his dignity untouchable. Behind him, Harris slumped in his chair, humiliated as two security officers entered quietly to escort him away. His protests were drowned out by the sound of applause. Malik walked through the crowd slowly, each step heavier than the last, but filled with pride. Hands reached out to pat his shoulder, voices shouted encouragement. We got you, Malik. They can't touch you. You showed him. At the far end of the hall, Malik stopped. He turned back just once, meeting the eyes of the students still holding up their phones. His voice was quiet, but carried over the noise. They tried to silence me. They tried to break me. But we don't back down. Not today. Not ever. The hallway exploded with cheers. And as Malik walked out of the school that day, flanked by his parents, the truth followed him. Not the lies on a suspension slip, but the truth recorded on dozens of phones ready to spread beyond those walls, ensuring that Harris's downfall would be remembered long after the ink on his resignation dried.